The Logic of Wonder. A later reflection on G.K. Chesterton's The Ethics of Elfland. When I first wrote that the world was shaped like a fairy tale, I did not mean that it was fantastic. I meant that it was reasonable. For fairy tales, properly understood, are not flights from reason, but its first exercises. The child who learns that the prince must not break his word to the fairy godmother is already learning that oaths are sacred. The man who denies that there are fairies is generally the one who breaks his word to everybody. The ethics of Elfland, which I once defended with the ferocity of a nursery, were not the ethics of nonsense, but the nursery of sense. Yet years have passed since I first looked through those crystal windows of Elfland, and I have found that what was then a philosophy has now become a fact. What I saw then as an image of imagination, I see now as an incarnation in history. The laws of wonder, the logic of gratitude, the morality of miracle, all those things I called the playthings of God have turned out to be the policy of Christendom. I once said I believed in magic because the sun rose every morning. I say now that I believe in the resurrection for the same reason. Both are acts of repetition, and repetition is the signature of joy. The atheist says the world goes on by necessity. The Christian says it goes on by command, but the command is given daily, and it is given joyfully. The modern man expects the sun to rise. The Christian still hears the voice that says, "Let there be light." The most dreadful heresy of the modern world is not that it denies God, but that it denies surprise. We are told that things happen. We are never told that things are given. The scientist has become the supreme mystic, staring at a flower as if it were a formula and not a fire. He can tell you that the flower grows because of chlorophyll, which is as if one said a poem exists because of ink. But the poet, whether he wears sandals or sandals of steel, knows that the flower blooms because it is happy. It is not a chemical reaction, it is a cheerful one. And so the old fairy tales were right again. The world has indeed been enchanted, but the spell was not cast by witches. It was spoken by the Word made flesh. The philosophers have tried to break that spell for 2,000 years and have succeeded only in breaking their own hearts. They have torn the veil of mystery only to discover a mirror. They have turned magic into mechanism and then wondered why the machine no longer sings. I have seen the cities of our century lit by 1,000 lamps and darkened by 1,000 doubts. Men no longer believe in the angels of heaven, but cannot stop believing in the angels of advertisement. They have abolished the cross and erected the signpost. Yet all their signposts point toward Bethlehem, for they are still searching for something that happened there, a thing so extraordinary that even the stars stopped to stare at it. When I was young, I thought fairy tales were the only stories that told the truth. Now I know why. For every fairy tale is a foreshadowing of the gospel. When the maiden is awakened by a kiss, it is because we were awakened by love. When the king comes in disguise among his people, it is because the King of Kings did the same. When the giant is slain by the small, when the impossible quest is achieved, when life triumphs over the sleep of death, these are not dreams of childhood, but memories of Eden. The cross is the last fairy tale, and it happens to be true. The fairy tale said that if you went far enough into the forest, you might meet a witch. The saints say that if you go far enough into the forest, you might meet God.
For he too chose the wilderness. He too disguised himself among the poor. He too left a slipper on the stairway of history, and men have been trying it on ever since. The logic of wonder is not the denial of logic, but its perfection. It says that because a thing is reasonable, it may also be miraculous. The philosopher can tell you why 2 and 2 make 4. The Christian can tell you why it matters that they do. The first can prove the equation. The second can sing it. And all the arithmetic of the angels is set to music. The modern world talks much of progress, but has forgotten the direction. We have sped up our carriages until they have become cannonballs, and we call it civilization when we are only traveling faster to the cliff. The fairy tale at least insisted that one should not marry the witch. Modern man has abolished the witch and married the broomstick. The soul of Elfland said the laws of nature were wonderful because they were moral. The soul of modernity says the laws of morals are hateful because they are natural. The old poets said that the gods became men. The new philosophers say that men became monkeys. Between those two statements lies all the tragedy of our time. For the first makes us capable of worship, the second only capable of complaint. To say that God took on flesh is to give glory to flesh. To say that man descended from mud is to return to it. When I look upon a sunset now, I no longer think it is merely a pageant of color. I think it is the world kneeling in crimson prayer. When I hear a child laugh, I think it is the echo of the laughter that built the stars. For if the universe is indeed a story, as all sane men suspect, then we are not the authors, but the audience. And the author is infinitely amusing. It is not enough to believe that God exists. We must believe that he enjoys existing. He is not a cold equation, but a consuming fire, and joy is his flame. When the mystics spoke of divine play, they were not being sentimental. They were being scientific. It is the only theory that explains why anything exists at all. The materialist says the universe is necessary. The Christian says it is a joke told by God to himself, and laughter is the sound of creation continuing. The longer I live, the more I see that the ethics of Elfland were the gospel in disguise. The miracles of Christ are not violations of nature, but the revelations of it. When he walked on water, it was not that the laws of physics were broken, but that the lawgiver was walking. When he turned water into wine, he did not interrupt the process of fermentation, but hastened it, as a child might whirl a spinning top to see it dance. I have heard critics say that Christianity is dull, and I have laughed as loudly as possible without being rude. Christianity is the only thing that ever explained why anything is interesting. The atheist tells you that the sun burns because it must. The Christian tells you that it burns because it loves to. The atheist sees a law. The Christian sees a lover. The modern philosopher worships order. The Christian worships the one who orders. And so the ethics of Elfland have at last come home. The fairy kingdom was always within the gates of Jerusalem. Its knights were angels, its dragons were demons, its magic was mercy. The silver key that opened the garden was hanging on the cross all along. We have wandered through the woods of reason only to find ourselves back in the garden of faith, where every tree whispers its creed and every bird chants its doxology. For the end of all logic is love, and the end of all wonder is worship. We have been told that faith is irrational. I tell you that faith is the only thing that keeps reason from going mad. The reason believes in ghosts. It is faith that believes in resurrection. The world, left to itself, becomes haunted by what it cannot explain. Only when it remembers its Maker does it remember its meaning. There was once a child who wanted to know why the sky was blue. The scientist told him it was because of the diffusion of light through atmospheric particles. The poet told him it was because heaven had been smiling since the dawn of creation. The child believed the poet, and the poet was right. For it is only when the heavens smile that we may stand upon the earth without despair. The angels, I think, are those who have never lost their sense of proportion. They still clap their hands every morning when the sun rises. They still laugh at jokes that are 1,000,000 years old.